Thanks. I'm called Raphael Obonyo. I serve in different positions and I play different roles, but most of it is about youth development. I'm an external advisor to the UN Habitat Youth Advisory Board. I'm also Africa's representative to the World Bank Global Coordination Board on youth. And I also serve as the convener of Youth Congress, which is a non-profit organization that promotes youth leadership and participation. In Kenya, if you look at the unemployment rate, it's at 40%. But the challenge is 70% of jobless people are actually young people. 7 out of every 10 jobless people that you meet, most of the, 7 of them are young people. And so it has been described as a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode. In fact, the statistics indicate that out of the 500,000 to 800,000 young people who come from colleges to look for jobs, it's just about 20,000 who get jobs. So you can imagine the rest of them struggle to find jobs, which they'll never find. One, like I said, population. We have Africa's population and Kenya's population is growing so fast, and most of it is youthful. So, if you just look at population. 2, the education system. There is serious disparity between what people learn in school in terms of our curriculum and the education system, and what the labor market requires. There's serious mismatch. There is the skills that we get are not the skills that are required in the job market. And then we also have the problem of the kind of initiatives that we are coming up with to address youth problems. First, there's no coordination. 2, they are not sustainable. They're so patchy, and we've seen them. From Youth Fund to Uwezo Fund to 30% preference for youth of all the government tenders, and all these programs, they're not sustainable. But 4 is the issue of corruption. Most of these programs are mismanaged. People are now using them as cash cows, and we've seen all the youth development funds and programs in this country. They've ended up with one single allegation: corruption. From Kazi kwa Vijana to Youth Fund to the 30% preference to even Uwezo Fund, all of them, the level of corruptions are so high. Certainly, and I can say that very confidently. And not just this government, I think successive governments have not been able to effectively and decisively address the problem of unemployment. For example, we do not have an youth employment plan in this country. So every day we wake up and we initiate something new, not knowing how it will contribute to the reduction of youth unemployment, not building on what we had started. We, for example, asked, why should we establish a youth Uwezo Fund when we have a youth fund, even without evaluating the successes and failures of the youth fund, and know really, if we establish Uwezo Fund, how is it going to help us address the problems that we witness or we've realized within the youth funds? We create an impression that something is happening, but there's no tangible result. So government is solely to blame, because the role of the government is to create a conducive environment for job creation, even if they're not the ones creating the jobs, but they need to create conducive environment. I don't think government has done that in a very thoughtful way. Youth unemployment is a threat to, political stability, social cohesion, and economic prosperity. Because look, unemployed young people are very vulnerable to politicians. Politicians can manipulate them whichever way they want. We've seen that in Kenya in 2007, 2008. We saw it in Senegal. We've seen it in Ghana. We've seen it in South Africa. We've seen it in Nigeria. When young people are not occupied, politicians tend to take advantage of that. It's not a threat to social cohesion, because these young people end up in very precarious activities. They engage in crime. They threaten our security. They're the ones who are causing tensions amongst us. Why? Because they have to survive. Because in terms of economic prosperity, there's no way we can prosper as a country when the largest segment of the population over 78% of the population are not part of the economy. So we need to ensure, for us to have economic development, we need to make sure there is inclusivity. I mean, we have inclusive growth. When you push someone to the wall, chances are they'll either bounce back or they'll bring down that wall. We saw it in Egypt when young people said, look, we can't take it anymore. We saw it in Tunisia. We've seen it in various other places where young people are saying, look, we want to ensure that we are part of the politics, economy, and social development. We cannot be bystanders. We cannot be in the waiting room. We cannot sit back and so young people are going to say, look, stay with your programs. And what they do, they start organizing themselves in form of gangs. They start organizing themselves in form of militias. We've seen young people now being radicalized because they feel no one cares about us anymore, so we had better go to this place where we think, unfortunately, that someone cares about us. One is we need a comprehensive employment plan in this country. You know, we can't wake up and come up with new programs every day. So we need a plan. Two, we need proper coordination of the various programs. How does Youth Fund complement Uwezo Fund? How does Uwezo Fund complement the 30% preference for youth? How does that complement, you know, they need to be interrelated. They need to be complementing each other. Two, we need to fix our education system. And we say that we need a total overhaul, reform of our education system to meet the objectives, the economic objectives that we have, and most importantly, employment targets that we set. Two, we must invest in youth development programs at the local, county, and national level. We haven't seen much of that. And four, we need to fix the problem of corruption, because even if we are only to allocate 1 shilling, we need to make sure that that 1 shilling goes to the programs that are required. Lastly, I think we also need to make sure that we create conducive environment for other stakeholders. No country can claim that the government can create the jobs that are required. It is the role of the private sector to grow the economy and to create the jobs that are required. So government must stop creating the impression that they can create the jobs that are required for young people. Make sure we have things like tax breaks and tax holidays for organizations that are providing internships to young people. You can't postpone the solution. It can't be tomorrow. It can't be 10 years later. It can't be in the next government. It has to be now. You know, it can't be tomorrow or the day after, because that is going to be problematic. My parting shot is youth unemployment is a ticking time bomb, and we need to really come together as a country and have a conversation on how we can address this problem. It is extremely important, it is urgent, and it is something that requires our collective efforts, our collective wisdom, and our togetherness to be able to address it. So no one can claim to be a bystander in this problem, because it will catch up with you. So we need to act now, come together, and address this single most serious problem in this country, youth unemployment.